Hello everyone, how are you all? Welcome to the second class, second session of ethics. We are in unit 1, ethics and human interface, and this is your part 2. This is part 2 of unit 1. Just give me a moment. This is part 2. Okay. So, in our last class, we ended here. We were discussing about different branches of ethics, right? And we ended at applied ethics. So, in today's class, we are going to delve a bit deeper into
শেয়ার করেছে
Apologies for the interruption. Okay, so let's delve a bit deeper into applied ethics. Let's learn it in a better way. Okay, so applied ethics refers to the practical applications. Okay, we know the rules, we know the moral considerations, what is good, what is bad, but we have to apply it. There has to be a practical application, right? I'll change the pen color to pink. Okay. Of moral considerations, it is ethics with respect to real world action, because this is what we ultimately care about. You all are going to be in administration, and this is where it will come into play. You will deal with the real world, not just bookish theories. So we have to understand the real world actions and applications, their moral considerations in the areas of private life, your own private life and public life, the professions, health, technology, law, and leadership. It is concerned with the philosophical investigation of specific moral dilemmas in public and private life. And there are different, varied ways we can apply ethics. So, one of those forms that we apply ethics, one of those areas that we apply ethics is bioethics. Bioethics, where biology, medicine, or medical science and ethics come into play. Okay, so bioethics is the study of ethical issues emerging from advances in biology and medicine. The field of bioethics has addressed a broad swathe of human inquiry, ranging from debates over the boundaries of life. Now, with the advancement of medical science, we can alter, we can manipulate the boundaries of life and death itself. We can debate on where does life begin and where does it end, right? The lifespan, beginning. Here is our entire lifespan. Here is the beginning. Beginning and the end. These are two points where bioethics or debates relating to ethics in biology and human life is most fiercely debated about: the beginning and the end, abortion and euthanasia. When it comes to abortion, there are two things: pro choice and pro life. Pro choice means having autonomy over your own body, pro-choice, people who argue that they have complete sovereignty over their own body, they have complete say, complete control over their own body, they can choose to terminate a pregnancy if they want to. Okay, that is pro-choice. And what is pro-life? People who debate about the inherent right of a fetus to survive, inherent right of a fetus to survive, because that is a future potential human being. Can you sacrifice one for the other? A person, a woman having right over her own body, is that, does that supersede or is that more important than a potential baby's right to survive, or our right as a society to give protection to babies, to embryos that yet cannot defend their own life? Okay, so that is the debate of abortion. Again, when it comes to euthanasia, the debate is whether a terminally ill patient can, with the help of ventilation, with the help of external feeding tubes and life support, how far should we continue to keep them alive? They inherently have the right to die with dignity and to alleviate themselves from the pain and suffering that seems to be irreversible, when they have no chances of coming back or getting healed completely. Do they have the right to die with dignity? And where does that debate end? Or should we continue to give them life support? We have to see that when we are entering that debate, when we normalize euthanasia, are we entering or trading a slippery slope where in future people, or the vulnerable people, the elderly people, will they be pressured to end their lives when they yet have the chances to survive with medical support? Okay, then we have surrogacy. Women have the right to their own bodies. They have the right to use their bodies to help other people or to earn money with the use of their bodies. But where ethics comes into play is there has to be some kind of a check that we do not end up commercializing the womb itself. And the people born out of that womb, they must not be treated as commodities. We have to check that the women who come forward to be surrogates are not treated as baby producing factories and are not economically exploited or physically exploited or exploited in any manner. Okay, what about allocation of scarce health resources? For example, organ donation, healthcare rationing. If two liver transplants are needed, if there is a renowned personality but he is 70 years old, and on the other hand there's a youth of 16 years who has his entire life in front of him, who do you decide to transplant the liver to? Who has more? How do you even decide whom to give the liver or whom to donate the organ to? Should it strictly be based on seniority or the person who has been first in the waiting list? Or should we see from a utilitarian perspective, who is going to give back our society the maximum return? The aged, renowned person, a sports person, a scientist, or a youth with infinite potential, right? Healthcare rationing in case of, for example, pandemic or war. Who do you give the scarce resource to? Should we give it to people who have maximum statistical chance of surviving, or to the elderly, or to the people who have been waiting for a longer time, right? Then we have the right to refuse medical care for religious or cultural reasons. Are you aware some people, for example, some people for religious or cultural reasons, they refuse to take vaccine. There's a certain section of Christian people, a very minor section called Jehovah's Witness. They identify themselves as the first Christians and all of that. Okay, but they have a very peculiar way of interpreting the scriptures, where they believe that it is written, it is dictated by God in the scriptures itself that they are not supposed to take blood transfusions. Now, as an adult, if you ask someone, does an adult have the right to refuse healthcare, to even die for the sake of their faith or religion? You may be saying, yes, an adult can say no to healthcare for the sake of their faith, to protect their faith. And similarly, adults can choose to die for their country or die for any cause that they believe to be greater than their lives. But imagine a parent refusing. Does a parent have the right to refuse healthcare support for their minor children for religious or cultural reasons? No. Then they cannot say no. They cannot refuse the childcare, the medical support to their children. Yes, they have absolute right to practice their own religion, but that right or that autonomy of practicing their own religion cannot supersede the child's right to medical care, the child's right to live. Okay? Good evening. Good evening. How are you all? Are you able to follow so far? Welcome to the class. We have just begun. So we are discussing some ethical dilemmas when it comes to bioethics. Okay, that is religious or cultural reasons. Again, the scope of bioethics expanding with biotechnology. It is ever expanding. Earlier, thousands and thousands of years ago, ethics was only limited to, to neighbors, a society, a small village dealing ethically and morally with one another. But now, with the advancement, with the growth in every sphere, growth of nations and advancement of technology, the scope of ethics has been ever increasing. Cloning, cloning and gene therapy. It's not just about correcting some deformed genes. It's not just about preventing certain diseases by altering genes. It is also about cloning. Do you think, suppose there's a cloned individual, a cloned human being with the exact genetic replica of an existing human being. Now, does that cloned human being, the cloned individual, the cloned animal has equal right as the original human being? Are they created just for the purpose or just for the utility to act as a organ donor, or do they have their own destiny? Can they decide for themselves, or are they just to satisfy the people, satisfy those who have created that cloned individual for research, for medical purposes, or for whatever purposes, whatever needs? Or can they, do they have their own destiny? Can they decide their own future, or they do not have that right? That's where bioethics comes into play. Then we have life extension. How long can we give life support? How long? And also, those who are in the class, tell me, is euthanasia or extending life, okay, uh, giving a terminally ill patient in a vegetative state with who is brain dead, just the person's heart is beating but he's brain dead, giving a little injection that would completely kill that person, is that equal to just withdrawing life support or just switching off the ventilation machines? Is it okay? Or which one would be less, you know, morally heavy? I mean, even to think about it. Imagine yourself in a position where you have to decide whether you're going to give a little injection to a person that would kill every chance of that person being alive, versus you just switch off the ventilation. Which one feels easier to you comparatively? A very heavy thing to even think about it, right? Okay. So keep interacting, that way it's better. And also human genetic engineering. How far is it ethical to interfere into the human genes to just remove the diseases, or just alter some genes in the embryo? Or can we go further into creating designer human beings with more preferred traits, like higher human intelligence, like better physical build? And if we do not keep a check on that, we might, gradually our society might be having a class divide genetic class divide. Have you ever thought about it? The wealthy ones, those who can afford to correct their genes and to interfere and to change and to design the physical and intellectual features of their babies, of the new generations. If we continue to do that, we will very soon have a genetic class divide, apart from all the social, caste, religious divide that is already there in the society. We will have genetic class divide. They will be completely separate. They will be like a subspecies of human, and from there, there's no going back. There's no running for equality or fairness or justice. Okay. Then there's astroethics and life in space. Astroethics, because we are exploring space. Surrogacy, yes, I have already discussed about surrogacy. Yeah, a woman's right to use her body to help other people or to earn money, yeah, versus giving her protection against exploitation, against being used, against the commercialization of womb, or treating women's bodies as women's wombs as baby making factories. Those are the ethical issues involved. Okay. Then astroethics, because we are exploring space. Let's say we land in Mars, uh, as we are continuing to explore, and do alien life, whatever microbial life that is there in Mars, do they have an intrinsic right? Are we morally obligated to protect alien life, be it microbial life? Are we morally obligated? Can we take the risk of wiping out or disturbing even the microbial ecosystem that is there in Mars if we start doing human activities there? If we carry bacteria from Earth to Mars and it disturbs the ecosystem, the microbial life that is there in Mars, how ethical is that? Do we have the right to disturb the ecosystem of a different planet? Do the alien life system, the alien ecosystem, alien life have intrinsic right in themselves to protect, to stay, to be protected and to stay intact? Yeah, wonderful. I hope you all are enjoying, you all are understanding all the topics that we have discussed about in this slide. Yeah. Then again, we have business ethics. There's ethics in business. It's a very important part of business. And okay, ethics in business is, normally when we first say ethics in business, we normally tend to think that it's just about making money in a fair and legal way. But no, it is not just limited to earning money in a fair and legal way. It is much more than that. Okay. Let's read the text first. Business ethics refers to implementing appropriate business policies and practices with regard to arguably controversial subjects. Some issues that come up in the discussion of ethics include corporate governance, insider trading, bribery, discrimination, responsibility. Okay, we'll discuss all these terms. So yeah, it is not just about earning money in a fair way, but it is also about taking care of all the stakeholders of a business. Stakeholders are who? Shareholders, the employees, uh, the society, you know, the staff who all are engaged with that business, the consumers, the customers, the clients, everyone who is involved with that business are the stakeholders of that business. And to take care and be fair with all of the stakeholders, that is a part of business ethics. Then we have corporate governance, having proper set rules, proper codes of conduct within a business is called corporate governance, right? Then insider trading. Do you know what insider trading is? I hope you all know. When a company shares are sold or bought using knowledge that is confidential, knowledge that is not public, it interferes with the fairness, it interferes with justice and fairness of dealing, justice and it interferes with the market integrity when somebody from the organization who has confidential knowledge about the business, about the corporate, they use their confidential non-public knowledge to buy and sell stocks. Then we have bribery. Bribery, we know what bribery is, right? Taking money to do something that is not legal, bypass laws. Then discrimination is there. Social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, we all have studied about. We all know corporate social responsibility. It's not just about earning money, working in the society, because a business is a part of the society. They have a responsibility to give back to the society, that is CSR. Then we have fiduciary responsibilities, means acting as a trustee, the boards in a business, the corporate boards, they are responsible for the shareholders money. Fiduciary is when one person or a group of people are entrusted with using or taking care of money as if it were their own, like taking care in the best interest. For example, when you all are you all will be public servants. You have a fiduciary responsibility to take care of public funds. So that is fiduciary responsibility. That means taking care of public money in the best interest possible. Okay, trusteeship. So examples like Panama and Pandora Papers. Have you all studied Panama and Pandora Papers, which reveal how politicians, public figures, billionaires created offshore shell companies to hide money in tax havens? Panama Papers and Pandora Papers are one of the biggest leaks in financial history in the world, where so many politicians, public figures, public officials were caught hiding their money in shell companies, fake companies that do not exist, in offshore accounts, in tax havens, in countries that have no tax and a very strict financial secrecy. Instead of paying money in taxes, instead of paying their taxes in their home countries, they evade tax. This is for tax evasion, this is for money laundering, and lots of evils were exposed in these Panama and Pandora Papers. Whereas these are the very people who makes laws, the politicians who formulate the laws, who are supposed to work for the nation. They evade tax utilizing the tax loopholes, international tax loopholes. They utilize it, whereas it is not illegal. It is legal, but it is unethical. Is it legal? Yes, because they are utilizing the loopholes to evade tax. Yes, it is legal, but it is unethical. The very taxes that they were supposed to pay to their home countries, the money that would have gone to build the infrastructure of their country, to fund the public health and education of their country, that went into hiding. There were real estate businesses, and in their offshore accounts, they were hiding the money, whereas the normal common people were paying taxes out of their small incomes. So unfair, right? So these are the examples. In case you do not understand anything, you can stop me, you can ask, okay? Now, environmental ethics deals with the ethical problems surrounding environmental protection. It aims to provide ethical justification, more moral motivation for the cause of global environmental protection, not seeing the environment just as a resource to extract from, to exploit from, not viewing environment as something that is there for our enjoyment only, but protecting the intrinsic right of the environment to be there. That is environment ethics, whether it is useful or not. Just because a tree is not uh, useful to us medically, or we cannot, or it is not edible, that does not mean that we will cut off those trees, those species, we will wipe out that species. We have to protect the environment for what it is, not just when it is useful to us. Then for example, we have Chipko movement. There has to be a comma. Chipko movement. In the 1970s, people were hugging trees, preventing the trees from being cut. That is an example, because they recognize, they consider the forest, the trees as a part, as the extension of their part, of their lifestyle, as a protector and provider. Okay, and out of love they were hugging the trees. That is Chipko movement. Then Uttarakhand High Court judgment on river Ganga as well as Yamuna. as living entities. What happened? Living. Give me a moment. Living entities. Rivers Ganga and Yamuna were considered as living entities. They were given the status of legal persons having their own rights and duties. So this is to bridge the gap between the reverence of our Indian culture that we already have, and we call rivers as mother, Ganga, Ma Yamuna, like that, and the modern environmental jurisprudence. Okay, then we have GM crops. So ethics is involved here. Yes, crops help in food security. It gives us water resistant, pest resistant, climate resistant crops. Yes, it can help reduce the scarcity. It can reduce hunger. That is all there. But genetically modified crops what kind of impact GM crops might have on the biodiversity in future, and also the health of our future generations. That is to be debated about. Next, we have international ethics. It refers to upholding ethical values and application of ethical principles in international relations. It directs us to make decisions and choices ethically when it comes to international and global sphere. International and global sphere. Ethical values, the upholding of ethical values and application of ethical principles in international relations. It directs us to make decisions and choices ethically, remember, in international and global spheres. It helps us to resolve some of the major international problems, issues, and provides insight into international conflicts. The debate is between having a state having sovereignty. Does a state have absolute sovereignty over its citizens, over its borders? Normally, yes. A state has complete say over within the nation's borders. They have complete sovereignty. They can make rules when it comes to their own country. But when a state is actively massacring people, its own people, or failing to protect them in some manner, then the international community has the right to protect, the right to intervene into a state's internal matters, and have a right and also a duty to protect its citizens. You can give several examples. These examples are a little bit refugee crisis from all over the world, conflicts in Syria, Yemen, Congo, then that is there, war zones, Gaza, you can include that example, then refugee crisis of Rohingya, Myanmar, human rights violation issues in Sudan, in Ukraine, even in Manipur. You can add all those examples here. Okay, you can add all those examples here. Now, next example is media ethics. Media ethics is concerned about the question what is right or wrong, good or bad, acceptable or unacceptable, about the means and the ways that the media collection is one, and presents information and news. Collects, and in the way a media collects and presents information and news. It tries to prevent any monopoly over information diffusion upholds pluralism. Monopoly as in when media is monopolized, when the media houses are run by a few politicians or by one major political party, then we cannot expect to see free and fair expression. We cannot see unbiased news. We cannot see objective news. If the media houses are run by certain people, a few people at the top, or the major political parties, then then media will no longer be the fourth pillar of democracy. It will fail to be the public watchdog that it is supposed to be. It will end up being a public threat instead of being a public watchdog. Okay? So there cannot be monopoly. It has to come from different sources. Then pluralism. It cannot be biased, or there cannot be just one perspective of portraying a news. When a news is covered, we have to take care of pluralism, meaning different perspectives, different opinions have to be allowed on a certain event. We cannot, also it has to be inclusive of different cultures, different regions. It cannot just focus on one region only, or one opinion, or one culture only. Instead of uniform gloss over media content, uniform gloss is when the media is not providing you with raw facts and data and captures the event in a neutral way, but instead it applies a uniform gloss, a pre-formulated opinion, and that is applied to the whole news, and they expect the audience, the public, to believe in that. That is application of uniform gloss. That is typically brought on by authoritarian regimes. In authoritarian regimes, it is typically seen to it is typically observed. News is biased, and there's always a uniform gloss. The people are made to think the way the authoritarian regime wishes. Maintains objectivity by providing different sides of an issue, which empowers the audience to formulate their own judgment. In a free country, media, if the media of a nation practice is ethical, they will treat their citizens as intellectual citizens, as intelligent citizens, and they will allow them to formulate their own judgments after having provided with all the facts. Issues of media ethics. What could be the issues of media ethics? Following? How is it going for you all? Media trials. When media starts running parallel investigations, they're not even waiting for the court of law to run trials and give their verdict. Instead, they start running parallel investigations, parallel trials, and declare an accused person without by depriving that person of their right to free and fair trial, depriving that person, not giving them the benefit of doubt, not actively violating a person's right to be called innocent until proven guilty. That is media trial. Then we have paid news, we have fake news. Paid news to shape public opinion by the use of money. Okay, whereas the people do not even know what kind of news they're consuming. They consume the news believing that it is the real or unbiased or objective news, but whereas it is not the case in most of the time. Then we have string operations. Usually some it is done to expose corruption or things like that, but sometimes it violates the right to privacy, and sometimes people are seen to be even trapped, framed and trapped in the name of string operation. Then we have sensationalization. talking more about giving clickbaits and gossip and scandal instead of focusing on real issues. Then there's live telecast of combat operations where a nation's security is treated as a live entertainment show instead of thinking about the protection of the nation. It hugely compromises the safety and security of a nation when a media does that. Then these digital media ethics. Digital media ethics. Let's see what could be the issues of digital media ethics. Digital media ethics deals with ethical problems and ethical issues of digital news and media. Ethical issues are emerging out of digital media plagiarism, not being authentic or stealing others' content, digitally altering images or video. We have seen this has become pretty common after the emergence of AI. We have seen deep fakes, right? Using anonymous sources, digital intrusion and violation of privacy, fake news and rumors and deep fake, etc. Nothing much to explain. You all must be knowing all these. Then we have artificial intelligence ethics. Artificial intelligence ethics. According to European Commission, ethics of AI focuses on ethical issues raised by the design, the development, implementation, and the use of AI. It involves issues like facial recognition, bias, prejudices, etc. The technology, AI technology, do you think it is morally neutral? Do you think technology is morally neutral? AI is morally neutral? No, it is not. Because AI is AI models are trained by human beings who carry their own biases, their own thinking, their own prejudices. And when they feed their own biases and prejudices into the AI models, they learn and amplify everything. They inherit everything from their trainer, the person who has trained those models. They inherit and they amplify all the prejudices, all the biases that the person is having in a systemic way. Okay, they amplify it. For example, let's say there is one AI hiring tool, and that AI hiring tool is fed with a company's data of 20 years, resume of all the employees the company has hired for the past 20 years. And for the past 20 years, objectively, the data says that most of the people, of the employees who were hired were men. Now, what does the AI learn? Now, the AI thinks that in order to run this company successfully, the person, the applicant, has to be a man. And that AI model will automatically reject all the female employees. And that AI does not know that it is being sexist. It is performing or behaving the way it has been trained to behave. That's where the danger lies. Also, it involves issues like facial recognition. Now, because the most of the AI models have been developed in the West and using white males, not females, not colored, but white males. Therefore, the error rates of AI models recognizing facial features of the colored people, of Asians, and of females, the error rate is quite high. Now, such AI models, if they are used by investigation agencies or police to detect, say, culprits, so the results are going to be hugely flawed. Can you understand? Yes? Okay. Next, The examples we have finished there. This is not an example. Theories. Next, we are moving on to theories. Are you able to follow so far? Theories. In the last class, in our first class, we have discussed, we have just touched upon the theories, the names, and we have not discussed much in detail. Today, we are going to do that, different theories of ethics. Okay. First, we have utilitarianism. In the last class, I was sharing that utilitarianism is a type of consequentialism. What does it mean? Means whether an action is right or wrong is judged based upon the consequences of the action, the outcome of the action. That is consequentialism. And utilitarian theory is a type of consequentialism where it says that an action is judged to be right or wrong when an action is considered to be ethical. A choice is considered to be ethical when it gives maximum happiness for maximum number of people. Greatest good for greatest number. Greatest good for greatest number. Okay? Greatest good for greatest number. So, for example, death sentence to terrorist. Death sentence to terrorist. Inherently, death sentence, killing someone is not good. But utilitarian theory says that if you have to kill one person or a nuclear bomber or terrorist, that will save thousands and hundreds and millions of lives, that will save countries. So according to utilitarian theory, that is the ethical and the right thing to do. That is the ethical and right thing to do. Okay, but there are certain limitations of utilitarian theory. There are certain limitations of utilitarian theory. Let's discuss on the limitations now. We have said that yes, we are looking for the greatest happiness for greatest number of people, but utilitarian theory fails to, does not, it is impossible. It is impossible to quantify and compare the measure of happiness or well-being. It does not account for things like feelings, emotions, culture, or justice even. It is impossible to quantify happiness. How do you quantify happiness? Can it be quantified? Can it be put into a spreadsheet and counted? Can it be added? Can it be multiplied? And what about the quality of happiness? How do you measure happiness? A school going boy passing his exam, the happiness of a person, a school going boy passing his exam, is that happiness equal to a mother giving birth to a child? Can that be compared? Who is more happy, or whose happiness matters more? What is the comparative quality of or the difference between these two types of happinesses? Right? It cannot, it fails to quantify, it fails to compare. Happiness is not something objective, not that we can numerically calculate, numerically calculate. Utilitarian theory, the limitation is that it simply reduces people to calculations. It reduces people to mere numbers while not paying attention to the emotions or the culture or justice. Just because it is utilitarian, just because it is giving maximum happiness to maximum people, is it the right thing to do? Then utilitarianism ignores the welfare of minorities such as LGBTQ plus communities. Suppose in a society there's only 10% LGBTQ community, 10% belong to LGBTQ and others are not. So according to utilitarian theory, if there's an act that is passed which restricts the right of minorities, the LGBTQs in this case, According to utilitarian theory, that would be good because it is maximizing the happiness of maximum people, whereas it is not paying attention to the rights of the minorities. According to utilitarian theory, it would be even okay, it would be morally or and ethically right to exploit the rights of minorities in order to make the majority happy. And we know that it is not the right way to go, right thing to do. Example, in a particular act is enacted in which the interest of common people, which is in the interest of common people, but at the same time is impinging on the rights of transgenders, utilitarianism would defend it. According to them, that would be the right thing to do. In utilitarian ethics, there are no shades of gray. Either something is right or wrong. Either something is right or wrong. There is no shade of gray. It cannot predict with certainty whether the consequences of our actions will be good or bad. The results of our actions happen in future. At this point of time, I can choose a certain path, I can go with a certain choice thinking that it will increase the happiness of maximum number of people. But what if it does not? For example, this is a pandemic situation again. I personally believe, I have strong faith in the vaccines that our scientists have developed. Now, I am making a law that vaccines, the people have to take vaccine doses, and of course, certain sections of people will be against it. They will say, no, I have bodily autonomy. This is my individual right. I have right over my body. I can say no to vaccines. But I am making a law. I'm saying that my law has to supersede my intention of bringing maximum happiness for maximum people. That is more important, and that is greater, and that is more nobler, and that supersedes your one person's individual right to your body, one person's bodily autonomy. And you have to comply to the law that we are making, thinking that it will give maximum happiness to maximum people. But what if it does not happen? It does not go the way I imagined. What if it backfires? What if the vaccine fails? Or what if people die out of some side effect of that vaccine? It also has trouble accounting for values like justice or and individual rights. For example, a hospital has 4 people whose lives depend upon receiving organ transplantation. Suppose a hospital has 4 people. One person needs a heart, a lung, a kidney, and a liver. And then a normal person walks into that hospital room for a minor something. They have cut their hand while chopping vegetables, and for that they came to the hospital to get it bandaged. Now, according to utilitarian theory, should we kill that person so that 4 people can be saved? Would we kill that person and give these 4 people a heart, lungs, a kidney, and a liver in order to save 4 lives and kill 1 people? According to utilitarian theory, yes. So that means it is uh, it is not accounting for values like justice and individual rights. That person has an individual right to live. You cannot just kill uh, anyone randomly. That person has a right to live, but utilitarian theory does not account for individual rights. It justifies the ends even at the cost of means. For example, stealing is unethical, but if someone steals money to join school or for health treatment, utilitarianism considers it ethically correct action. It justifies the ends even if the means is not right, even at the cost of means. It does not care about the means at all. It just cares about the outcome. If somebody is going to school, if somebody is getting a health treatment, that means it is correct according to utilitarianism. Then we come to deontology. What is deontology? Last time we had already discussed it is a duty-based system. It is a duty-based system, or thinking that certain things are inherently right and inherently wrong. Deontology is the duty-based system of ethics which holds that some acts are intrinsically right or wrong regardless of their consequences. Here we are not at all paying attention to consequences. We don't care about consequences at all. We are saying that some acts are intrinsically right and intrinsically wrong. That means, going back to the example of our when we were studying utilitarian theory, we said that giving death sentence or executing terrorists is good because it is saving thousands of lives. But a strict deontology would argue that killing someone, giving life sentence, or executing someone is inherently wrong, no matter what the outcome is, no matter if that act saves thousands of lives. Even then, we cannot kill people. Even then, executing a person is incorrect. Okay? Moral agents have duties to follow moral commands or rules regardless of their consequences. Now, deontology is the ethical theory that uses rules to distinguish right from wrong. Rules. Earlier, remember, earlier we were going by arithmetic, calculations. Okay, like a Excel sheet. Here we are going by a rule book. Rules are rules no matter what. This is very rigid. To distinguish right from wrong, deontology is often associated with philosopher Immanuel Kant. No matter what, he said that we have to follow the rule book no matter what happens. Kant believed that ethical actions follow universal moral laws such as don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. Unlike consequentialism, which judges actions by their results, deontology does not require weighing costs and benefits of the situation. For example, as per deontological approach, a civil servant needs to follow the given rule and regulation without thinking about the consequences. They just have to stick to the rules. Suppose an old lady, a vulnerable, a poor old lady comes to your office. They have lost their documents, their ration card and everything. They need support, but you are strictly following the rules. You are saying that no matter what, we cannot give you support, we cannot give you your but cannot give you the food, the supplies without having your proper documents and ration card. That is strictly sticking to the rules by not even thinking about the consequences, and you know what is right and what is wrong. Okay, then rigidly following deontology can produce results many people find unacceptable. Sometimes it is unacceptable, right? Suppose there's a rogue country, suppose like a country like North Korea, for example. They are planning to launch a missile and destroy and wipe out a complete city, for example. And the only way to stop that is to hack into their system and to attack them, to launch some cyber attack, hack into their system. That will cause some damage. Some of their people might die as well, but it will save a whole city from being wiped out, a whole nation. But according to deontology, a strict deontology will still argue that no, hacking into hacking into a nation's systems and security and surveillance and everything is still not right, even if that act saves thousands of lives, even then hacking is not right, deontology will argue. So that is one blind spot, a huge drawback. A huge drawback. As per this theory, there is no place for human inclinations, emotions, and consequences. No place for human emotions and consequences. Human emotions, when an officer will cannot even help a poor and vulnerable lady because they have to stick to the rule. And you cannot run a government being so strict, being a strict deontologist. Okay. In some situations, emotional intelligence, empathy is required to bring harmony or to achieve greater good. You cannot always stick to achieve a you cannot always stick to the rule book. It may produce consequences that are unacceptable to most. You should not lie even if the lie saves the lives of millions of people. Is it acceptable to you that you cannot say a minor lie, even if you know that your minor lie is going to save the lives of thousands of people? One possible way of resolving this problem can be through an idea called threshold. Before going into that, another limitation, it's not included in the slide, but another limitation is when two competing deontological duty. Suppose you are giving shelter to a family uh, who is trying to escape some kind of, there's a military militants are attacking a region, and you are giving shelter, you are hiding a family. Now a group of militants turn up to your home and they ask about the whereabouts of this family that you are giving shelter to. Now you have a deontological duty to protect the family, number one. Number two, you have a deontological duty to speak the truth. These are two opposite, contradicting, and competing deontological duty. In this case, which deontological duty would you choose? That is one of the flaws, that is one of the drawbacks of deontology. Okay? One of the drawbacks of deontology. One possible way of resolving this problem can be through an idea called threshold deontology, which says that always obey the rules unless there is an escape route. Unless threshold, you have to obey the rule, obey the rules, obey the rules, but then there's a threshold, not beyond this. Unless in an emergency situation, at which point we should revert to consequentialist approach. If you see that being a deontologist, beyond this point, beyond this threshold, you are causing more harm than good, then you have to revert to being a consequentialist. Revert to being a consequentialist. Right? Now, virtue ethics. Next, we have virtue ethics. I believe you have understood what deontology is, what utilitarianism is. Okay. Now, virtue ethics. Ethical actions ought to be consistent with certain ideal virtues that provide for the full development of our humanity. It is a character-based approach. It is not a math-based approach. It does not depend on calculations. It is not a rule-based approach. rule based, not math based, not rule based, but it is a value based, character based approach to morality developed by Aristotle and other ancient Greeks. It is the quest to understand and live a life of moral character. It is saying that when a person is inculcated with the right values and trained and groomed with the right values right from the childhood itself, we get a person who is inherently good, who have imbibed all the values. In that case, we need not give that person rules. We need not give that person, ask that person to go by the mathematics of it. That person who is inherently good, who is full of, who has imbibed the values, will naturally act in an ethical way. That's what virtue ethics says. It depends on the inherent character of the person, even when there is no rules, even when no one's watching. Virtue ethics addresses not only the rightness or wrongness of individual actions. It does not stick to the actions alone, but it, it goes beyond the actions, and it observes the lifespan of a person. Lifespan. One person cannot be called virtuous if they perform in a good way, if they do good acts only for a limited period of time. But this one depends on the entire lifespan of a person, okay? But also the characteristics and behaviors that a good person should strive for. This is lifelong thing. Virtue ethics holds that an action is only right if it is an action that a virtuous person would carry out in the same circumstance, and a virtuous person is a person who acts virtuously. A person who just acts virtuously no matter what the circumstances are. According to Aristotle, by honing virtuous habits, people will likely make the right choice when faced with ethical challenges. Virtue ethics helps us understand what it means to be a virtuous human being. What it means to be a virtuous human being. It gives us a guide for living life without giving specific rules for ethical dilemma. But the drawback is that it does not give you any specific guideline, any rule book, any code of conduct. It just says that a good person will naturally act good. There's too much of ambiguity in virtue ethics. Limitations. It doesn't provide any clear decision model for making moral decisions. No frameworks given at all. No single and definitive answer to what is to be done in moral dilemmas. Then theory lacks focus when it comes to determining the types of action that are morally acceptable and permitted from the ones that should be avoided. What is morally acceptable and permitted and what should be avoided? There's no clear guideline at all. Again, when we say there's vast difference on what constitutes a virtue. What is a virtue? It differs from culture to culture, from timeline to timeline. In certain societies earlier, in certain primitive societies, there were headhunters. Remember? Headhunters. And the more heads one could collect, it was a matter of pride. So that was a virtue in that particular society, in that particular timeline. But will it be applicable in today's society? No, in today's society, we are looking for peace, we are looking for harmony, we are looking for respect, rights of other person, etc. We are looking for humility. So these are the virtues in today's society. So this theory, virtue ethics, does not define. They simply say it's virtue, but virtue itself, what is virtue, what is vice? It differs from society to society, from timeline to timeline. Earlier, in our society, women who were very timid, who allowed themselves to be suppressed and subjugated, were considered virtuous, were considered good women. Today it has changed. Today we know that that is not called virtue, that we have that there's gender justice, there's gender equality. There cannot be, we cannot encourage gender discrimination in the name of being good women. We cannot let ourselves be suppressed. So are the virtues the same for everyone? Different people, culture, and societies have different opinions on what counts as virtue. And here itself, I have to talk about wait. Golden mean. Golden mean was given by Aristotle. Aristotle. Here he said, what does golden mean? It is he said that virtue lies between two extreme vices. For example, courage. Courage is a virtue. For example, I write it here. Courage is a virtue. The extreme deficiency of courage is called cowardice. And this is a vice. And excess of courage is called foolhardiness or recklessness. So virtue is something that lies between two extreme vices. The golden mean between being a coward and being reckless or foolhardy is courage, and this is a virtue. Okay, this is a virtue. Hello. This is a virtue. Then next we have determinants of ethics. Determinants of ethics we are going to discuss in next class. The next class we are going to discuss the determinants of ethics, and today we are going to end the class right here. Let me know in the comments if there's any confusion, any doubt. I hope you all have understood and enjoyed the class, and I'll see you tomorrow in the next class. We'll continue from determinants of ethics. Thank you so much.